So swing and syncopation are two fundamental concepts when it comes to groove in electronic music. But before we dive into that, I need to talk a little bit about strong and weak beats. So think of it like this. In nature and in music, whenever we have a force, we have some sort of opposite opposing force or resistance against that. So whenever we have push, we have pull. Whenever we have strong beats, we also have weak beats. And weak beats have to exist, otherwise we would have no strong beats in the first place. So this is kind of how it works. We have strong and weak beats, and understanding which is going to be really helpful for your music production. So when we're talking about this, you'll notice what is actually a pattern. I've got my grid set to quarter notes here. And so this pattern is that whenever we have a strong beat, the beats next to it or around it are going to be slightly weaker than it. So we have a strong beat here, and this next beat is going to be slightly weaker than the last one. And then we have another strong beat, and this next beat is going to be slightly weaker again. And this pattern goes all the way down to 16th note. So if I go into my 8th note grid here as well, we have a strong beat here, and this one's going to be weaker, and then this one's going to be stronger, and then this one's going to be weaker. And so we're talking about this in context with the beats around it. So again, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. This is kind of how it goes. If I go into 16th notes this time, 16th notes is where all of the groove in electronic music is unlocked. This is kind of like the smallest metric. And so the 16th note grid is really important. And in the 16th note grid, it does the exact same thing. We have strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. So there is a little bit of a hierarchy here. So we've got these strong beats at the start, and then we have these beats in here, which are slightly weaker. And then these beats in here, which are the weakest of them all. So I think it kind of makes sense when we look at the house structure. We have a kick drum here, and we have a kick drum here, and we have a kick drum on all of the quarter notes, right? And so these are our really strong beats. You could refer to this as the downbeat if you like. And then we also have our open hi-hat on this 8th note, which is the offbeat. So this one is going to be weaker than the last one. It's also going to be weaker than this one. So it goes strong, weak, right? And then again, going into our 16th note grid, you can actually see that there is no structural spots. There's no kick, clap, or hi-hat on these 16th notes, and that's because they're not structural points. These are our weak beats, the spots within the structure, between the notes. These are the ones that we're going to be talking about today in terms of swing and syncopation. So just to recap all of that, what I really want you to understand is these structural spots. Let's say our house music structure, these structural spots, so these quarter note spots where the kick drums lie, and the 8th note spots where the hi-hats lie. These are the stronger beats. This is our structure. This is our foundation. And if I go into 16th notes, you can see there's these two little gaps that are between the structure weaved in there that don't have any notes playing on them. And these are our weak beats. So with that explanation out of the way, let's move on to talking about swing. So what swing is just a different type of groove. We have straight grooves and we have swung grooves, and those are two different things. So to explain this to you, I've got this drum rack with a few different hi-hat sounds in here, and I've selected the 16th note grid, and I'm just going to program in 4 notes. So let's just do this. 4 notes, something simple like this. This is what it sounds like. If I play it with my house rhythm, if we remember our pattern, it goes strong, weak, strong, weak. And so I'm going to create some swing for you, and let's just listen out for this swing and see if we can hear what it sounds like. This is a straight rhythm, and this is a swung rhythm. Straight, swung. So you'll notice by delaying the weak beats, we're actually creating this lazy feel. And why this is working is because our structural points, like we were talking back here, our structural spots, this structural spot here, this structural spot, and these points here, these spots are staying unchanged, and we're just delaying the weak beats here. If we were to delay the strong beats here, then things would start to fall apart because we're changing our foundation and ruining our structure. So again, to create some swing, we just delay the start point of our weak beats, something like this. And then if I play that with my structure here, remember we don't have delay any of these because these are all just hitting on structural points. Anything that hits on this 2nd and 4th 16th note, we're going to have to delay if we want to create swing. So this is the feeling that we get from doing this. I've also got a few different tones in this drum rack here, so I'm just going to play around with this. Let's do something like this. And so by delaying those weak beats, we're creating that swing, as you can hear here. So it's good to know the theory behind that, but it's actually not essential in Ableton. What you can just do instead is go over to this groove over here, and I've already selected a groove here, but you can just go and hit this arrow here, and that is going to bring up this groove pool. And if you click on them, you can hear the groove that's been created. I'm just going to go down to swing 16ths because we're talking about 16th notes here. And I'm going to select something like swing 64ths, double click that, and that's going to put that into my groove pool over here. So I can go down to this drop down menu here and select that. And that's just automatically going to delay the start points of these MIDI notes without you having to do anything. So if I just hit play here, you can hear that it's going to be swinging already. Right, so that's already done for you. It's really easy to do in Ableton. I'd recommend just using the groove pool to start with, and then as you pick up this concept, then you can start doing things manually a little bit later on if you want to. So swing is about moving the position of the weak beats, but syncopation is about accenting weak beats. So I've got this snare here, it sounds like this. And if I'm to put that on the strong beats, which is the quarter notes, the same time as the kick drum, we're essentially just playing this snare at the same time as the kick drum. So it's really just layering with the kick. We're accenting the kick drum, right? So if I'm to go onto 8th notes this time and move all of these over onto 8th notes, now we're going to be accenting this 8th note or accenting this open hi-hat. So it's going to be playing at the same time as the open hi-hat. And that's a slightly weaker beat, so you could say that that is slightly more syncopated if you want to, but the real syncopation comes into play when we start talking about 16th notes as well. When we accent these weak 16th notes in here, the 2nd and the 4th one, like we were talking about earlier, we get this interesting sense of push and pull, and this creates syncopation. So let's have a listen to this. So if I just commit this swing here, you can see where the notes are actually starting. And one thing you'll notice is that we have this swung rhythm up here. And if we're trying to keep our track swinging all together, what we need to do is delay the start point of any weak beat. So holding Command, I'm just going to move this over to match up with this note here. This is what happens when we have a snare on this 4th 16th note each time. So this is going to create some syncopation, you could say. But we don't want to accent every single one. So I'm just gonna accent one here, and let's have a listen to this. So what I could actually do is I'm just gonna duplicate the length of this loop up here. Maybe I'm gonna accent this one instead, and let's have a listen to this. So that sounds good to me. I'm gonna highlight one bar long and just duplicate that. And then gonna zoom in over here, and I'm gonna accent this spot here, like we just did then. And I'm also going to accent this spot. And this is our 8th note spot, which is the same time as the hi-hat. We've got these weaker beats in here, but we're accenting a weak beat here. And let's accent this one here. And let's just see the effect of what this does. So let's have a listen from here. So you can see by accenting weaker beats, we're starting to build up a sense of push and pull, a sense of groove in our tracks. So I would recommend going in here and sort of playing notes and sort of accenting different beats and start to get a feel for what each one of these spots sounds like, and just start playing around with the 16th note grid, put different sounds on different spots and see what that does to the groove. Start accenting some weaker beats and create some syncopation. So just for the purpose of this example, I've got this loop here which has a whole bunch of syncopation built into it. We're going to have a look and see kind of which spots have been accented. So let's just have a listen to this in the context with our track. So let's zoom in here. Remember, we go strong, weak, So you can see that this beat here is being accented. There's some sort of percussion thing on here. And then we got this spot here. We got this spot here, which is slightly weaker than this one. We got this spot here, which is being accented. You go over here and you can see there's a whole bunch of syncopation built into this loop because we're accenting these weak beats every now and then. We're not accenting all of them. We're just accenting and just choosing particular ones. And this way we start to build up a groove. So this same syncopation theory applies to all things rhythmic in our track, and not just drums, but anything rhythmic. So I've got this chord loop here. It's these rhythmic chords that are just playing once every half bar or twice a bar. And right now they're just playing on those really structural points. When you're listening to this, you'll notice that it's not actually adding anything to the groove because we're only accenting really strong spots. So let's have a listen to this. Now I've got my eighth notes selected here, and like anything, it goes strong, weak, strong, weak. So if I'm just to bring this over, you can see that there's going to be slightly more syncopation now when we listen to this. So you can kind of feel how that spot is a bit weaker, and by accenting it, create some sort of interesting rhythm. So I'm going to go over to my 16th note grid now, and I'm just going to drag this over one to the right and accent this spot. So let's have a listen to this and what impact that has. So it's an interesting vibe because it's accenting this weak spot in here, creating some syncopation. Actually feels like it's giving the groove a little bit of a push into this next bar here. So that's the kind of vibe we're getting from this. So I wanted to show you this example just to explain that syncopation extends throughout your groove, throughout your whole track, into all of the different rhythmic elements and not just drums. So a quick recap of what we went over today. We started off by talking about strong and weak beats, and we sort of looked into the house structure. And the house structure works because everything is sort of sitting on these really strong beats, and it gives us heaps of freedom to access all of the weaker beats in between those spots. So when we're in the 16th note grid, the second and the fourth 16th note are the weaker spots. And if we accent those, we create syncopation. If we delay those spots, we create swing. So understanding this now, you should be able to go into your DAW and have fun experimenting around with accenting particular syncopated spots. Learn by experimenting and just sort of playing around and seeing what works and what doesn't work. So I hope you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, remember to like and subscribe to the channel as always. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.